6-2 6-love 55 minutes. That's how long it took Linda Noskova to disassemble Alex Eala at Indian Wells in March. Not just beat her, erase her. The kind of scoreline that doesn't show up in highlight reels because there are no highlights. Just one player hitting through another player like she isn't there. That match happened 90 days ago. And now they play again for a spot in the Berlin final on grass in a stadium named after Steffi Graf 9 days before Wimbledon. Same two players. Completely different equation. I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you who wins this match. Not a hedge. Not it could go either way. An actual pick defended with actual tennis reasoning. Because I've spent the last week watching both of these players demolish quality opponents in Berlin, and the evidence points clearly in one direction, even if it's not the direction the ranking suggests. Let's get into it. Start with Noskova's week because it's been genuinely spectacular and it deserves proper respect before I explain why it might not be enough. She opened against Renata Zarazua straightforward. Then Olenikova 6-1, 6-3 done in under an hour. Then Diane Parry in the round of 16 6-2, 6-2 69 minutes. Then Mira Andreeva in the quarters 6-3, 6-3. Then Paula Badosa 6-1, 6-3 68 minutes. Read those numbers again. She has not lost more than 3 games in a single set this entire tournament. 5 opponents. 10 sets played, 10 sets won, a combined game count that looks like someone forgot to turn on competitive mode. This is the first grass court semi-final of her career, and she's playing like she owns the surface. Her serve has been a weapon all season. She's averaging 6.6 aces per match across the last year. And that number has gone up this week. Her flat backhand off both wings is arriving heavier on the Berlin grass than it has any right to on a surface she hasn't historically dominated. And her height, 5 feet 10 inches, gives her a physical advantage in the serve +1 patterns that define grass court tennis at its highest level. Noskova is playing the best grass court tennis of her life. That is not in dispute. Now, IGA's week. Donna Vekic, the freshly crowned Queen's champion, beaten 7-5, 6-4 in the first round. Elena Rybakina, world number 2, beaten 7-5, 6-4 from a breakdown in the opener. Alina Svitolina, world number 8, beaten 6-3, 6-4 with 19 winners to 9 unforced errors. 3 wins. All against players ranked significantly higher than her. All in straight sets. 0 sets dropped across the entire tournament. Her grass court record in 2026 now stands at 9 wins and 1 loss. Here's what matters about how IGA has won these matches. She hasn't won them the same way twice. Against Rybakina, she absorbed early pace, weathered a 4-1 deficit, then started returning with interest, and cracked the second serve. Against Svitolina, a completely different type of opponent, one who grinds and retrieves and waits for your concentration to lapse, IGA imposed tempo from the baseline, found early leads in both sets, and closed them out before Svitolina could build any sustained pressure. That adaptability is important. It's the difference between a player riding one hot pattern and a player solving different problems with different tools. IGA has done the latter consistently this week. Here's where the actual tennis analysis lives. Let me walk you through the specific geometry of why this matchup on grass is fundamentally different from what happened at Indian Wells, and why that difference favors IGA. At Indian Wells, the conditions amplified everything Noskova does well. Hard court, medium slow pace, high bounce, balls sitting up in Noskova's hitting zone. That belt-to-chest window where her flat ground strokes are devastating. The surface didn't reward IGA's variety because her slice and angled shots kept bouncing up into hittable positions. The court essentially took her best shots and delivered them gift-wrapped into Noskova's strike zone. Grass inverts this dynamic. On grass, IGA's left-handed slice serve stays low and skids away from a right-hander's backhand. That serve, the one Rybakina couldn't solve, the one Svitolina kept mistiming, becomes doubly dangerous against Noskova because of where Noskova's backhand preparation begins. Watch her closely. She loads her backhand with a high take-back. When the ball stays below her waist, that preparation window gets compressed. she has to adjust mid-swing, which introduces timing variance. This isn't theoretical. Tennis Abstract has Noskova's being aced rate as a statistical weak point, meaning she gets aced more frequently than her ranking would predict. It suggests she's not the best mover laterally on the return, and on grass where serves come in faster and lower, that vulnerability compounds. But there's a more important tactical point. IGA's forehand. On grass, she hits through it with a flatter trajectory than she uses on hard courts. Against Svitolina yesterday, that forehand generated winners from positions where on hard courts she might have settled for a neutral rally ball. On grass, the ball stays low after landing, meaning Noskova has less time to reset her base between shots. Those flat, penetrating Eala forehands that sat up harmlessly at Indian Wells become genuine weapons when the ball is barely clearing the net and arriving at hip height. Conversely, what does Noskova gain from grass? She gains free points on serve. She gains pace through the court. She gains the ability to hit winners sooner in rallies because the surface rewards her aggressive instincts. And she gains the psychological comfort of knowing that at Indian Wells, she barely had to work to beat this opponent. But here's the problem with that last point. The player who showed up at Indian Wells doesn't exist anymore. Not really. Not after what Eala has done this week. The serve transformation is the engine of everything. Comments on the Reddit match threads this week keep circling back to the same observation. Eala's serve has fundamentally changed. She's hitting aces in spots she never used to find. Her first serve percentage has climbed into the high 60s across this tournament. That lefty slice out wide on the deuce court is pulling returners off the court entirely. Against Rybakina, a player who owns one of the best returns in women's tennis, Eala hit 4 aces and held serve comfortably through most of the match. Against Svitolina, the serve generated enough free points to keep pressure off her ground strokes early in games, allowing her to play aggressively rather than defensively. Noskova's return game is not Rybakina's. It's not Svitolina's either. Noskova can belt a return when the ball arrives in her zone, but she's historically more comfortable against flat, predictable deliveries. The lefty angles, the kick that moves away from her forehand, the slice that stays low into her body. Those are the serves that have troubled her against left-handers throughout her career. Eala is left-handed. Noskova has faced relatively few elite left-handers this season. That's a specific measurable advantage that didn't exist at Indian Wells, where Eala's serve was a non-factor in the match. I need to address the Czech thing. You've probably seen the stat. Eala was 0-13 against Czech players before this grass season. 0-13. Against players like Muchova, Noskova herself, Siniakova, Krejcikova. A comprehensive losing record that some fans have elevated to the status of a curse. She broke it at Birmingham against Nikola Bartankova in the WTA 125 final. Guttered out a 5-7, 6-3, 7-5 win. That was her first ever victory over a Czech opponent at any professional level. I bring this up not because I believe in curses. I don't. But because the discourse around this match is absolutely saturated with it. Filipino tennis communities are anxious about it. The Reddit threads are half joking about it. It's become the frame through which people are processing this semi-final. Here's my position. The Czech record is a statistical artifact created by the density of quality Czech players in the rankings and the timing of when Eala encountered them in her development. Muchova at the 2026 Miami Open gave her a 6-0, 6-2 lesson. Noskova did the same at Indian Wells. But those were matches against top 15 players while Eala was still ranked in the 30s, on hard courts where Czech players have traditional strength, during a period when Eala's serve was still developing. The Berlin version of Eala exists on a different surface, with a different serve and a different psychological state. The Czech record is a historical curiosity. It's not a predictive tool. So what is the predictive tool here? It's the serve numbers, the surface dynamics, and one other factor that nobody seems to be weighting properly, court time. Noskova has spent a total of roughly 5 hours on court across 5 matches this week. She's been efficient to the point of dominance. But here's the thing about efficiency against lower-ranked opposition. It doesn't prepare you for the specific stress of extended rallies against a player who's been tested deeply all week. IGA's 3 main draw matches have been competitive affairs against world-class opponents. She was a breakdown against Rybakina and had to fight her way back. She faced Svitolina mounting second-set comebacks and had to close them out under genuine pressure. She's been in the fire. She's served under tension. She's played at maximum intensity for sustained periods. Noskova's opponents, with all due respect to Andreeva and Badosa, haven't pushed her to that edge. She hasn't been tested in a close second set this entire tournament. She hasn't had to serve to save a breakpoint in a tight spot and find a solution. When the pressure arrives in this semifinal, and it will, because IGA's level this week guarantees competitive proximity, Noskova will be accessing that gear for the first time since arriving in Berlin. IGA has been living in that gear for 4 straight matches. My pick, clearly stated, Alex IGA wins this match. I think she wins it in 3 sets. Noskova likely takes the opening set behind early aggression and serve dominance. But IGA adjusts in the second and takes control in the third. That's been her pattern against powerful players this week. She absorbs the initial burst, reads the patterns, and then makes her opponent repeat themselves until the variance works in her favor. The specific scoreline I expect, something like 4-6, 6-4, 6-3. A first set where Noskova's serve is near untouchable, but IGA hangs close enough to stay in the match mentally. A second set where IGA's return positioning adjusts. She stands 2 feet further back, gives herself more time on the Noskova serve, and starts finding depth on her return. A third set where Noskova, now facing a type of resistance she hasn't encountered all week, starts pressing on second serves and makes errors she hasn't been making. That's my read. That's what the tennis tells me. The X factor that makes me confident is this. IGA has beaten Rybakina and Svitolina, 2 players with objectively more complete grass court resumes than Noskova, in the last 48 hours. And she's done it without dropping a set, without showing signs of physical fatigue, and without her serve deteriorating under accumulated pressure. The player who lost 6-2, 6-0 at Indian Wells was a different version operating on a different surface with a different serve. That player doesn't walk onto the Steffi Graf Stadium grass today. The player who does walk out there has won 9 of her last 10 grass court matches and has eliminated a Wimbledon champion and a 2-time Wimbledon semi-finalist in consecutive rounds. Noskova is brilliant. Her week has been immaculate. But she hasn't faced this. She hasn't faced a left-handed server on grass who's operating at this confidence level with this quality of results behind her. Indian Wells is irrelevant here. It happened on a different planet. IGA in 3. For those watching live, here's how to catch it. The match is scheduled for today, Saturday, June 20th, at the Steffi Graf Stadium in Berlin. It's the first singles semi-final on the schedule, penciled in for 12 p.m. local time. That's 6 a.m. Eastern, 3 a.m. Pacific for those in the States, and 6 p.m. Manila time for the massive Filipino fan base that will absolutely be watching. And the Americas. Tennis Channel carries the Berlin Open. You can stream it through the Tennis Channel app. If you're in Europe, check the zone availability in your market. In the Philippines, check your local WTA broadcast partner listings. Coverage is typically available on cable sports networks. The WTA app will carry live scoring for those who can't access video streams. One more thing. If you're tuning in specifically to see Eala, do yourself a favor and watch the warm-up. Watch her serve in the practice strokes. If that left-handed motion is loose and fluid, if the ball is bouncing off the racket with that specific pop she's had all week, settle in. You're about to watch something special. This is the biggest match of Alex Eala's career. A WTA 500 semi-final. A potential final against the world number 1. 9 days before Wimbledon. And she's not just here to participate. She's here because she's earned it by dismantling 3 players who were supposed to be better than her on this surface. Noskova is the final exam before the final. And the evidence says Eala has been studying for exactly this kind of test all season long. 3 sets. Eala advances. Remember where you heard it.